Hey everyone, this is Mesha with As Long as You're Breathing, Keep Living. Yeah, I'm still getting used to the new name. um, I am so glad for you all to join us today, both YouTube and Facebook. So we should be broadcasting to both. That is how I set it up. So let's hope so. And for those of you who also watch the videos, I'm very glad to have you too. And do join us in the chat. Feel free to ask questions and chime in. And for those of you who watch the recordings, tag us, Stacey and I both, and we will be glad to answer any questions you have. Today, y'all, you're in for a treat. Of course, it's an Every Life is a Story event, which are actually my favorites. And we've been trying to do this story. The Mercury retrograde gremlins got me last time, and I didn't have any internet. But since then, the internet gurus have been here, and I'm hardwired now. so I'm hardwired in now. So hello, good to have you. Good to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be talking with you today.
So we have Stacey Siekman here today, who Stacey's story is just amazing. And so I'm just going to get out of the way and just let Stacey start telling us about Stacey. And welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I appreciate it, Mesha. And it's always a privilege and honor and blessing to be able to talk with you and share our story. Gosh, where to start? Well, I think for me, a pivotal time in my life and what was the foundation of my life's work actually came at the loss of my mom. And I was 4 months pregnant, and my mom, I talked to her in the morning, and 2 hours later, I got a phone call that she had collapsed and suffered a massive stroke. And so at the end of that week, we ended up losing her. But it's so interesting to me now when I look back at that time. I know for a fact that I was pregnant for a reason, because it kept me focused on life inside while I had death and dealing with death on the outside. And that was for me, it was a really significant event for me to be able to say, okay, well, I don't have a choice. I have to stay focused on this life inside of me and make sure I'm taking care of myself and resting. And it really gave me that intentional connection to make sure that I was staying healthy and well, and despite everything that was going on the outside. So fast forward to 5 months, and she was born, which was amazing. It was awesome. Yeah. So now for me, I had life on the outside, and I still was dealing with death on the outside. And I just remember one day coming down the stairs, I just felt empty. Even though I was excited about her and I was totally ready for that, me personally, as the woman that God created me, I was like, what am I doing? What do I do with all of this? Because I just feel empty. I don't have a purpose. And I just heard his voice, and he said, you have a life inside of you, and it sustains you, and it's beating every single day, and it has its own rhythm and sound. And like the life of your baby, your heart needs your nourishment. Your heart needs you to tune in and tap into that. So that spurred the question for me. I know, so don't cry, because I'll cry too.
I know, but wow, that is just so your heart needs you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your heart needs you.
Yeah. Stacey's heart.
We think we need our heart, but that's not what God told you. Mm-mm. God told you your heart needs you. That is amazing. Yeah, I love it. Okay, go on.
And so, anyway, so I you know what, Mesha, I just asked one question. I wanted to know the answer to what is truth when your internal and external worlds collide. And it was that concept between loss to life. Like, I mean, it was such a, it was just a profound question that came to me. So I started to just kind of journal that question. And fast forward 16 years till now, my mom's loss and my mom's death breathed life to my life's work, because without that, I could not have gone to the depths that I needed to be able to put together hit excellence, which is heart, image, truth. And so those times in your life that you have those unexpected just hits, transitions, they may knock you off your feet and they may just really rattle your cage, but there is a gift in every single one of them. And it's not like my mom died and I'm like, ooh, what's the gift that I get to open? Like, that's not what I'm trying to preach, but if you can reach the point at some point in your mind to say, I don't like it. I don't like what's happening. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to feel this. But I think there's something in this for me when I'm ready to open it.
It's like, what is the circle of life here?
There's a gift in this moment that is greater than me. And it's not what happened to me. It's the possibility of how could this have happened for me? And so it's not, if people get stuck in the circumstances defining them, I mean, I could have easily been stuck in my mom's death.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people do because they just don't have, I mean, it's heartbreaking. I mean, your heart is broken and it doesn't even have to be a death of a loved one. It's some type of a loss, or maybe you were in a serious accident and you lost your ability to do X, Y, and Z. Well, your ability to do X, Y, and Z is going to give you the strength to do A. And so I have a really strong passion to teach people, to lead them back to their lives, because their life is their heart. And your heart affects everything you do. And yet it's the one voice that's often never heard.
And loss is loss. Well, certainly the loss of a loved one is a huge loss. Many people don't experience that kind of loss for years and years and years, but they experience traumatic loss well before they experience that kind of loss. So loss is loss, and people sometimes, because it's not that kind of loss, they're expected to just act like it's no big deal, when to them it is a big deal. And right. So you acknowledge up front that loss is loss, and that we have to find a way to deal with loss. And that's one of the things I love about what you say, because when we first talked, you're like, okay, this is my loss and this is what it was, but loss is loss. And so you wanted to help everyone deal with whatever it was that their loss was they were feeling. And you acknowledged that right up. And I love that about it, because there are a lot of young people who aren't losing a parent or whatever, but they're experiencing losses, and they're just expected to kind of, it's not being acknowledged. It's not right. being acknowledged. They're expected, well, they're young, you'll get over that. And no, it's impacting them, and they need skills to do this. They need skills. They need understanding. They need, and we need to acknowledge what we're feeling. This was a loss. This was a loss to me. And so I love that about your work, is that you acknowledge a loss is a loss is a loss. And I love that about what you do.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that where I've found the biggest difference for me, and what really was a pivotal moment for me in my work, is that being an athlete, being an athlete all my life, I swam from the age 5 all the way through college. And so I know that the training and the commitment and the hours and the working out and just all of that was pivotal for me, because it helped me have the physical foundation to handle my mom's death and being pregnant at the same time. And then it also gave me probably one of the greatest gifts, is that in all of this struggle, I love working out. I love challenging the body. I love taking anybody that wants to do something that they've never done. I don't even care if it's walk around the block. Maybe that's what they've never been able to do. And so, or somebody wants to do an Ironman, or somebody wants to do a marathon. It doesn't have to be physical races by any means, but maybe they just want to get on the floor and play with the grandkids, and they've never been able to do that. So what I'm learning is that I grew up my whole life in a performance-oriented, result-oriented way to move. And at the end of the day, that's great. It's awesome. But there was something missing. And I think that's there was that life inside of me that was missing when I got out of the pool and I was done with the race. Because who I was became my sport. And being a mom, it brought me, it's like, okay, I'm a mom. It's like, well, no, you were born as Stacey. So those are the things that you do. All of those performance-oriented hats that you wear, roles that you play, responsibilities that you have, those are all hats you wear. But Stacey shows up to each one of those. And see, I didn't ever go through my athletic career thinking like that, which I'm pretty sure most people don't.
No, they don't. People are their career, and I understand that. I understand that what you do can be your passion. I understand that. Believe me. What I do is my passion, and I do it. I do it because I do it. So I understand that part, but people get wrapped up in that part, and they don't realize that they're missing out on being who they are.
Well, and the point, I think. And I don't know when this is. I think everyone has their own time in their life that this happens, but we lose a sense of being because we become human doings. And so as soon as you start placing those hats, and I mean, some people have their hats piled up. And they wonder why they're tired and weary and burdened and overwhelmed. It's because you have 20 hats on your head with all the roles and responsibilities.
Right. And usually think that you're the only one that can wear those hats, that nobody can help you with those hats. And usually people who do that, and I've been one of them, that's what we think is, these are my hats to wear, and so we're not good at letting other people help us with them,
Right.
So,
But even that, I mean, even more so than that, it's at some point in your day, if you don't take all of those hats off to where you just have Stacey, I don't have a hat on right now. And so you gain a sense of being Stacey when you don't have all of the hats on. Now, I know it might be 10 minutes of a day where you're like, okay, I'm going to sit and just tune in to the heart that was given to me. I'm the only one that can sing this song that's inside. I'm the only one that can do the purpose that God placed in my heart. And so what does that look like for me? It might be 10 minutes out of your day while you're waiting in line to pick up your kids from school. And so when I started to do that, I realized that what's missing for people is we live most of our lives in a workout, performance, results-oriented way. It's a way of doing. And at some point in there, if your heart is your life and it affects everything you do, but you're never tuned into it because it's 5 years ago, you've slowly but surely left it behind you, that you're 5 years down the road and your life is back there waiting for you. It's calling for you. And so that was really probably one of the most whoa, aha moments for me, is that here is this life. My heart is my life. And my calling, God's calling for me, is inside. And so I had to learn to switch from a workout mentality of doing to a work in mentality of being. And so when you work in to live out, it's a big difference. And I think that that's really become much more clear and defined in probably the last 6 months to a year for me. And even more so in the last probably 2 months, of how important it is to bring being back to the center of all doing. And it's the heart work. There's no other way to do it. working in isn't just about renewing the mind, it's about conditioning the heart. Working
Okay,
in,
so when you say conditioning the heart, what do you mean?
so conditioning of the heart is, I have a program that I've designed. It's a tool that I use, but for me, it's a tangible thing for people to get into the rhythm and connection of their body. And I use the foam roll.
Yes.
And yes, it's a physical training tool that you see in physical therapy and all that stuff. Well, I've been a massage therapist for 15 years. So I took my love for massage, my love for working out, my love for life coaching, and my love for movement. And I put them all together in a program that, by using the foam roll itself, it teaches you internal connection and balance no matter what's happening on the outside. So I may have you on the foam roll moving a certain way. Maybe I'm just having you march your steps with your hands on the ground. Then I may say, okay, Misha, I'm going to give you a 5-pound weight in your right hand. And then at the same time you're doing your right hand, you're going to lift your left leg up and march, and you're going to do them at the same time. Okay. If you lose the connection to Misha, you're going to fall off. Okay. So it's renewing the mind. It's always, the more you can heighten people's sensory awareness and keep them engaged, keep their mind, body, and spirit engaged as much as possible, then you hear those people say, well, my routines are really important to me. When are we going to get back into our normal routines? Routines are great until they keep you from thinking.
Until it becomes so automatic that you don't think to do them, is what you're saying.
As soon as you stop thinking, what have you done with your mind? You don't have to think about it anymore. You just go from A to B. Well, that's doing on autopilot.
Like maybe when we just say, I love you, but we don't think it, we're just saying it because we just say it.
It's just say it. So one of the things that you can do to help people understand the concept of being is you have to flip the switch. You have to bring them to a perspective of, you have to flip their perspective inside out. So how do you do that? You do that by saying, it depends upon what people are needing or what my clients are looking for. Let's say you go the same way to work every day. You drive the same road, the same place. I can guarantee you that everybody that does that, I've done it, where I got into there and I'm like, I don't even remember driving. Okay. If you continue going through life like that, life is being missed because life is experienced in the moments. So routines are great, but let's say, gosh, today, instead of turning left, I'm going to go right to go out of my neighborhood. Now you have re-engaged your senses because you're not used to going that way. So now all of a sudden you're like looking around, you're seeing things, and it doesn't change that much, but it changes everything because you're more present. Or I should say, it doesn't seem like it changes that much. But when you start to do that on a regular basis, you start tuning into what's going on inside. And by doing it on the foam roll, it gives people something tangible to understand it, because they'll be on the foam roll doing something and all of a sudden they'll go, oh, and I'm like, that's your energy, power, and strength. You just connected to it. You can't stay there all the time, but that's it. That's your power that God gave you to be able to share your gifts to the world. And the whole room will feel it. And so if you can give them something tangible and have them experience that enough, then you can say, okay, let's take that intentional movement of internal connection and balance, and let's move that into truth. Let's move that into your emotions. And what does that look like?
Okay.
So how do you, the same connection you did on the foam roll, How can we move that into when you're feeling off balance in your emotions? What do you need to do on the foam roll to stay on it? Because it doesn't matter if I put a weight in your hand or nothing, I'm still going to have you keep the intention there. And you don't even have to have a weight to be able to get the core strength that you need if you do it correctly. So it's a very different approach. It's a whole sense of being approach to giving them something physical that then you can start to weed it emotionally, mentally, spiritually, nutritionally. And by nutrition, I don't mean the food you eat. Yeah, the foods you eat are really important, and that's a huge piece of staying healthy. But I think people chew on negative thoughts. They chew on doubts. They chew on they chew them all day long, and they wonder why their movement is affected by it emotionally.
And I think many of the people who do that are the ones who sit in the room with you but are disengaged from you. So it's like you're in the room with somebody but you're alone, and it's because they're disengaged from you because they're in their mind. That's been my experience, is that they're often either negative thoughts or whatever, but so because that's been my experience, is people who are in the room with you but they're not really there, and it's because they're going over and over all these negative things, and they're not living, they're not being, they're lost in this whatever, this bad nutrition. They're feeding themselves this bad nutrition that is actually disconnecting them from heart, because they're not feeling anything. They're just if they are, it's anger or bitterness or whatever, but it's not good feelings. It's not love. It's not, and so yeah.
I think too that I found some of it is of them sitting in there and having their own connection to whatever, or disconnection for that matter. But what I found is if I'm so focused on what they're doing, then I'm not connected. I'm connected to what they're doing and not how Stacey needs to be. So you're not present. If you're present in yourself and you're connected to you, the outside world doesn't impact you like that.
If you're grounded and centered, you're okay with being yourself, and what someone else is doesn't impact you, and you can do whatever it is you need to do to take care of you regardless.
And I think, it's going to, it's not like it's a cut and dry thing.
Sure.
It, the outside world does have dramatic. Shaylee, that's so loud, babe. Sorry, she's printing.
And that's her.
And that's my daughter printing. Anyways, no, the whole thing is, it's just kind of like, it's totally fine. I just was hoping that it wasn't going to go on for very much longer.
No, it's fine. She's not bothered.
Anyways, so, but I've just found that being Stacey or someone teaching somebody the art of being, it's really hard. You think like it's really difficult. It's not, you can't be intentional every second.
Oh no.
So if you can find those moments of, they're so powerful that if you can even find one moment of being present at any given time in your day, it will shift, because you'll be like, oh, that was really neat. Or, wow, we just stopped and smelled the flowers. Oh my gosh, did you hear that bird? Okay, you're present with what's happening. And the more we can become present like that, being Stacey becomes a little bit easier. And then you also start showing grace, and you start extending some extra things because you understand what it means to be centered and present and full of love and full of grace. And I wasn't always like that. I was an emotional, reactive, hot mess.
I understand that. I understand that. I do.
And that is probably still, I'm so much better. But now, like last year, my word for the year was fortitude. I wanted to understand what it meant to have a heart of fortitude. Didn't even know what that word meant when it flew into my head. Had to look it up. And it stands to have a mental and emotional strength to face all adversity. And so all last year, I was like, one of the things I wanted to work on was taking this concept of, okay, I know what it means to be internally connected and balanced physically. I get it. Okay, so how do I take that and place it into my emotional chaos and learn to use the energy from the emotions in a positive way? And so one of the things that I found interesting is that we use all emotions are is energy.
Yes.
And so if we don't even think about joy, excitement, happiness, we just use the energy. But if you're intentionally acknowledging the fact that you're like, wow, I feel really happy, I'm going to use this energy. Well, if you're angry, that's a really powerful energy.
Very powerful.
And I'm really good at it. And so I was like, hey, if I can learn to use that energy and shift it to a work in situation and use that energy to make me go forward, I'm going to be unstoppable because I got a lot of that in there. So that was my year last year, is trying to gain a little bit more. By turning 50, it was time to be a little more emotionally mature. I'm not great at it some days. I lose my I lose my stuff. But what I love about it so much is that at the end of the year, I kept thinking, there's just something, like, I understand it, I get it, and it's powerful, and it's going to take some time. It'll probably be a lifelong process. But there was still something else missing. And I was like, well, okay, Lord, what is this that's missing? Because if I have a heart of fortitude to face all adversity, what else is there? And so he spoke to me again, and he said, you have a heart of fortitude, but to have that, you have to have a heart in solitude.
Whoa.
Yeah. So my word for the year this year is solitude. And what that means for me is there's one sentence: knowing God leads to self-control.
Whoa.
And that's where I stopped. I was like, okay, I guess I need to have a year of really growing closer to God so that will lead to self-control, which will lead to patient endurance, which will lead to godliness, which will lead to love of other Christians, which will lead to other loving everyone. And so I was like, okay, I've got to stop right there on that sentence. And so this year is writing every day, and I take time for solitude. And that means just sitting with no agenda. I'll have my journal open, and I usually spend that time writing, but I don't have an agenda of what I'm writing. And I talk to him. I want him to teach me what it is he wants me to do, because this is a pivotal piece for my work. It's, if you're going to bring people back to their life, their hearts, you have to have that foundation of solitude, calm, connected. You have to have those things. So.
Yes. Wow. That is, so say that again. What did God say to you? Say it again.
So if I understood what it was to have a heart of fortitude, key word is of. Because it's fortitude. Of fortitude. But to have a heart of fortitude, you have to have a heart in solitude.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep. That's deep. It would take me a bit to get my head around that. And yeah.
It's pivotal to the concept of working out and working in. One's physical strength and one's heart core work. So I'm in the heart core work, and you have to come to a new edge in your life to be able to start going, okay, I'm right at the edge of my heart. I'm looking in. Like if your heart was your pool and you're looking in it, you've got to be ready to say, okay, I'm not going to be a sunbather anymore. I'm not just going to play fish out of the water. I'm not going to put my feet in anymore. I got to start walking in. You're not in the shallow waters when you're in your heart.
No, you're not. I mean, no. And so many people choose not to be in their heart. I mean, they get busy to not be in their heart, or they do so many things, to not be in their heart, and tell themselves that what they're doing is their passion, or that they're doing their heart or whatever, but it's really their doing, and they're not being. We had a comment from actually a friend of mine from years ago. I've known her since she was a little girl, Christy Irwin, who wants you to know that what you're saying is very powerful.
Oh, that's so sweet. I don't, do the chats not come up? I don't think I can see them.
Not for you, they don't. Yeah, unfortunately, that's how. But yeah, I'm watching them. And actually, I knew Christy's dad and I played music together years ago.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we lost Christy's dad years ago too. But Christy, I've known since she was a little girl, and so she wanted you to know that what you're saying is very powerful. Love you too, Christy. And she wanted you to know it's very powerful.
Oh, well, tell Christy, thank you very much. It's just, there's so much, there's nothing more beautiful and more powerful and than when you capture, or someone is willing to share their life, meaning their heart. And so when you look at social media, and when I say this, it's not, when I say this, please, I'm gonna separate the words, because it's gonna sound very harsh when I say that. There are a lot of heartless people because they're so filled with doing that they've lost a sense of being. And so I want to move that heartless, Less, to being heartful. And the only way you can do that is through internal connection. And I've talked to a couple people in this last week that said, gosh, one of the ladies said, I'm so anxious to start working with you, but I've been so emotionally challenged for a while that I don't know that I can open that up right now. And I said, we're not going to start there. We're going to start with you physically, because if you don't feel well physically and you don't feel better inside the body and the connection and the core strength, you can't handle that other stuff. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start here. And it just was a really, there's so many people that have, Misha, you're the only one that can sing the song that God gave you. There's nobody else in this world that has the same heartbeat as you. Not one. So that's why I ask people, and the saying came up to me just recently, that a heart left behind is a life yet to be lived. Whoa. And I don't want any hearts left behind, because I may need to have your heart story in my story to complete it.
I'm not sure that everyone understands that I think so many people don't understand. Interdependent lives are what we're here to live. We're here to complete each other's stories by sharing hearts, not just doing, but by being, and by sharing And I don't think people get that at all. What you just said about what, I may need your heart story in mine for my life. I think there's so many people who don't get that that's what living is. People think living is how much money I made, how much success I have, what did I accomplish? Well, at the end of it, who were you with? What love was there? What was your heart connected to? And by heart, I mean your beingness, your the emotion of you. What was that connected to? Not the doingness of you, the beingness of you. What was that connected to? And so many people, they're disconnected from that.
Well, and I think they are, and I really truly believe that the heart itself is like when I came into my marriage, my parents divorced when I was 12. So that baggage and that hurt and that, I mean, I couldn't have even understood the impact of how that was going to play out in my life. As a kid, I did, but when I got married, all of a sudden I was like, that wound opened up again for me because I was like, well, how do you do that to a spouse? Because if you've never been married, you can understand that's hurtful and whatever, but until you're married, you go, well, you took vows, so why would you do that? And then, so that was another layer of that I had to work on. And I'll be honest, when I came into the marriage, I thought, this guy is going to help me. I'm going to give him my heart and he's going to fix it. It doesn't work that way because the only person that can take care of their hearts is me. That didn't go well in the first 7 years of our marriage. So then we have kids. So now I'm a mom in our family unit. That opens up that divorce piece way later, 18 years later. And it's probably longer than that. But anyways, I mean, it's just, people just need to understand that piece was instrumental when I was younger because God knew where I was going to be today with this work. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a matter of circumstances. They can define us, define and destroy, or they can actually open us and create something from it, transform us and create. And that's really where my heart and work is that if you leave your heart back there or you give it, one of the key words you shared was sharing. Mm-hmm. We share our hearts. As soon as you give your heart to someone else, you've just given your life away because you're the only one that knows that tune. Nobody else does. And so when my husband and I, get married, it's like, okay, well, to become one, right? Well, we still have separate heartbeats. He has purposes and a passion that God gave him. I have purpose and a passion that God gave me. And together we'll work that rhythm and sound together so that we can both share our gifts. But it doesn't always work that way. Because where our expectations are, well, you're going to take care of me and my heart. And then people get hurt. They get crushed. So my goal is to help people take their hearts back. Does that mean that I never get hurt? I get hurt every day. I'm probably one of the most sensitive people all the time. I'm learning that their stuff on the outside doesn't need to wreak havoc on my heart on the inside unless I let it. And so that's one of those internal connection and balance pieces that I'm responsible for to get back into tune of me. Mm-hmm. But if you don't understand what being Stacey, even the experience of that is, how would you know if you're ever there? So my daughters one day said, Gosh, I would love to be in your mind one day. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. You do not want to be in this mind. This mind is always doing this type of work.
Right. Yeah.
But it's challenging work, but I find it to be, it's just exhilarating. I don't know what other word to say. And so many people hear the word heart and they're like, oh, that means feelings. Well, feelings come and go in an instant. So if you can just sit in them and not do anything with them, they're not gonna start punching you. They're feelings. So just sit in them and don't feel like you have to do something with them. Just sit in them, and they'll go.
Get used to them. Get used to having feelings around.
Mm-hmm. And then the feelings don't have such an impact on you because it's just energy and motion. That's all it is. So if you look at a hurricane or the storm, you have the front winds that are really, really damaging, but you always have the center of the storm. And people they get through the front half, they get through that initial impact, and they get to the calm of the storm, and then they get comfortable. But what they don't realize is that during that calm in the storm, that's your time of being. So you're prepared because the other half of the storm's coming.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
People aren't, the calm of the storm is just like us. It's our heart. Our heart is the calm of that storm. Because you're going to get a storm. Sometimes it storms all day. It storms for weeks. But in every storm, there's a center of it that's calm, and your center is your heart. And so if you can learn to tune in when it doesn't matter what's going on the outside, it's going to provide you that strength emotionally and mentally to face all of the adversity that's coming up around you, coming up behind you, coming up over you. And it's all founded in your heart. The heart affects everything you do. So we are told in scripture, guard your heart. Well, most people have never even picked it up. And I'm going to ask you this, it's a tough question. There's no right or wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
When's the last time you heard your own heartbeat?
Actually, I do listen to my own heartbeat.
There you go. Okay, good.
Because and not only that, but I'm one of those people. Honest to God, people that I really care about, I want to hear their heartbeat. If it's somebody in my life that I really care about, the sound of their heartbeat is an important thing to me. Yeah. I know what my son's heartbeat sounds like, that kind of thing. Yep. The heartbeat to me has always been, and it could be something that I don't remember when that started with me. It could have started in my medical background. I really don't remember when it started, but something about the heartbeat became fascinating to me. It started representing something to me that I don't even understand. It has a musical quality to it that is just, to me, it has something, it says something. And so I listen, for, mm-hmm. And I can't describe it. So, but no, I do. Whenever I meditate, especially, I get really quiet. And if I don't necessarily hear it, then I feel for it and I get it that way. So, I actually can answer that. I can see that there's a point in time when, I guess, I don't know. That's probably been only in the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so. So probably the first half of my life, I could say I did not. That's probably how it is.
Well, yeah. And I think one of the reasons why I asked that is because I thought back to myself, mm-hmm. and even with my girls. I mean, the only time, think about this. Most people, you go to the doctor for your physicals every year, mm-hmm. or when you're sick. And somebody else is listening to your heart you never hear yours. And it was so profound to me. It was such a simple thought, but yet I was like, oh my gosh, we're trained from a very young age that somebody else gets to listen to our heart and tune in and tell us what's going on with our heart. And, oh, it sounds really good in there, or it sounds really bad in there, or, hey, you're feeling really good. But yet I finally got a stethoscope so I could hear my own. And, is that something that everyone's going to do? No, but it's that thought of, if you're supposed to guard your heart because it affects everything you do, and you've never even taken the time to feel your own pulse, listen to it, hear it, that's your voice, that's your story, that's your life.
It is.
And it is begging you. That's what I got when I came down the stairs that morning. And when they say, I'm empty, I'm unfulfilled, I'm lost, I'm confused, I don't know what my purpose is, my first response to someone would be, just put your hand over your heart and listen to that song. Feel it. And just tune in. Even if you do that, that's an intentional movement to internal connection and balance back to being. It's not like you have to do 85 things. It's find the time to just, what does being Stacey look like? What does being Misha look like? You're the only one that knows that. And it can be as simple as, wow, I have a life inside of me that, nobody has the same one. Well, I like to sing this way. I kind of like to write this way. Well, you're the only one that can do it, so do it. And don't worry about, well, I'm guilty of this. I've had people say, well, Stacey, you're too deep. You can't share like that. Well, I read C.S. Lewis and I don't understand half the stuff he says. Didn't stop him from writing. I read his stuff all the time and I'm like, okay, don't understand that one. That's not for me. And so, but I've had multiple people say, now I understand you can't grab somebody and take them scuba diving without a tank. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And even I have to come up for an air. If I like to live in the deep waters, I got to come up and breathe in the shallow waters. And that's completely fine. But if somebody's interested in finding out what's going on and tuning in, they have to stop working out and doing and get to working into being. And that's where my goal and my heart is to turn the health and wellness industry inside out. You have to shift the perspective. It has to happen. And so many of us don't even know where we lost our heart.
I understand that statement. I do. I understand that statement and where we lost our heart. That is, I do understand that statement. And I think it's a process, losing our heart. I think it starts and then it's progressive. Mm-hmm. I know where my process started actually. And, and I think then it's a process of reclaiming it. And I think reclaiming our heart is, for me, it's reclaiming that I matter. Being Mesha is what I'm here to do. I'm here to be me. That is my job. That is my number one most important thing. And I matter. And that alone has got to be good enough. And then everything else that I am on top of it is just icing on the cake. But just being Mesha has got to be good enough. And if it's not, then whatever or whomever or whatever it's not, then that's not to be in my orbit.
Right.
I've got something in my orbit that doesn't belong.
Right.
And so for me, that's what I hear you saying. And I think the change of perspective is that instead, what we usually do is we try to make ourselves fit. We try to make ourselves, instead of saying, no, this is who I am, and that doesn't mean we don't do self-improvement. I don't mean that, but I'm saying the essence of who we are. What we're meant to be, the our beingness that we are created as. If that's not good enough for someone,
Right.
instead of saying, no, this is who I am, I'm being me, and instead of claiming that and being that, our perspective is, well, there's something wrong with me and I've got to shift so that I'll be accepted. And that's the part that we have to shift away from, is no, we don't have to change who we are. We have to be who we are. And then,
Right.
and then where we end up at is the right place when we're doing that.
Yeah. And I think a really great illustration for someone to understand it. And I always live through experiences, and I live through illustrations as well. And is a puzzle. So I look at every single person as a puzzle. And so let's say that you have 5,000 pieces and I have 5,000 pieces. And I'm sure people can relate to this that are listening.
Mm-hmm.
You see something, I see something that Maisha's doing. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. Okay, well, I can't sing, sweetie. So if singing's in mine, I'm in trouble, right? But if I think that that's what's going to make me better, or I should do that because she's successful, and I take your piece of your puzzle and I am adamant it's going to fit in mine, so I put it in my puzzle box. So we go through our whole life like that. And when we start building a puzzle, what do? We dump all the pieces out. For me, I put the edges together, which is the outside of our frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of those pieces are supposed to go in your puzzle. But if you open your box, if I have 20 people's boxes open and I go around through my years and I'm picking people's pieces out that I want in my box, and oh, by the way, I don't want that piece because I don't want that to happen. I wish that wouldn't have happened. So you throw that piece out. Okay, their pieces won't fit in your box unless God orchestrated them to be in your box. Like my husband, he was supposed to be in my box. But my mom's death is a piece of my puzzle for me to keep building it out. But if I don't like that piece and I go, nope, I don't want it, I'm going to throw that piece away. It's like,
you don't have a missing piece of your puzzle.
A missing piece. And if there's anything that infuriates someone more, is to go through the whole puzzle and you're missing one piece.
Yeah.
Because that's what brings the life out of the colors and enriches the puzzle. Well, it's the same for us. And so the good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty, whatever the picture is, when it's all together, it's a masterpiece. But we don't get to choose necessarily which puzzle pieces we don't want. That's not, it's like, well, that was given to us. Now, sometimes we've already put that puzzle piece in and it's time to move to the next puzzle piece. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, when I'm working on a puzzle, I might be building outside of the frame. I might be building some pieces that I like the colors of. They all match. And so you know how you kind of build it out here,
mm-hmm.
But you're not ready.
Yeah.
You're not ready to attach it in the puzzle because those pieces aren't there yet. Because you haven't reached that point in your life yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that because it gives you such a sense like, ooh, who's that next piece? Or what's that next piece? And there's some really powerful, that's what I want people to see. Their hearts are beautiful. That's your puzzle. So if
and our puzzles consist of not just us. Our puzzles are more than just us. But
all the pieces that make us up.
right.
It could be you and I, you're in my puzzle.
Yes, right. Interaction.
So you're in my puzzle. Yeah. There's a piece of you in my puzzle.
Right.
You shared your gifts. We connected. I believe that you're an instrument in my puzzle.
Right.
And so you brought color and energy and love and life to me. And I hope that I did the same in return.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know? And
I think that's what beingness and heart is about. It's about the energies. It's about the energies connecting, and it's about our energy. It's about recognizing who exactly we are, instead of just, as you're saying, instead of just doing, it's recognizing our beingness and being okay with that. So
well,
absolutely.
I want to piggyback on what you just said, because this was pivotal for me, and it's instrumental for me to be able to share this piece, is that I kept trying to understand what being Stacey was, or what does that mean? And it wasn't until I realized that I can keep looking out there for Stacey, but God created me in his image. So back to the beginning, when my word is solitude, if I'm created in his image, it's not about my self-image anymore. I need to understand what being created in his image means. So by knowing God, I'll see Stacey. And so that's really important, because I kept saying, okay, I got my heart back. I should see her. And I was miserable because I was still looking in all the wrong places. You will never, for me, I will never see Stacey unless I see him.
And for me, God is here. He's in my heart. It is my heart. So it's all, for me to know me and to know God, I have to be in touch with my heart.
Yep. Well, if you read scripture, what does it say? As a face is reflected in the water, which is a face value, top of the puzzle box type thing. You see your face.
Reflection. Yeah.
So the heart reflects the whole person. So that's the difference for me, is that you've got to be able to see yourself there. The heart reflects the person. That is your life. It is your rhythm and sound. It is your song that needs to be seen, heard, and shared. And only you can sing it. So, but to sing it, you got to know the lines. You got to know the notes. You got to know the pieces.
And you have to value it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to value it.
Yep. And that's probably one of the, well, it's not probably, it is my mission, is to help as many women, and I will work with men too, but right now I'm really focusing on women, to take their lives back and show up from their heart to their roles that they have, so that they live the life that God intended them to live.
And that's the thing. None of us are talking about, when we're talking, we're not talking about just sitting around kumbaya all the time. We're talking about in our beingness. We're talking about that beingness then does define the roles that we have, because we want to show up in the world, but we want to show up in the world authentically, and that's showing up in our beingness, and that is being in other people's lives, that is interacting in other people, that is having roles, that is doing different works. And so, but all of that has got to be related to our beingness, and we have to value ourselves and make sure that we're in the right places. Don't settle for the wrong places. Don't settle for places where we're marginalized or not allowed to be in our beingness.
Right.
There's so many things attached to that, but we're certainly not saying sit around all the time and kumbaya and being. We're not saying that. We're saying understand what being you is, and then take that, and whatever that is, then live that beingness. is what we're saying. But
Well,
that's what you need to live is authentically. Live you. Live you.
well, we were created to be and empowered to do. So again, it goes back to if you're just doing, then it's, I mean, if you leave being out of the equation, then you're living in existence. You're merely existing if you leave being out. And I want people to move from just existing to living. And the way to do that is to bring being back to the center of all doing. Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted. There we go.
All right. Yeah, my batteries went dead they went dead. We've been on an hour, so we need to be wrapping up. But yeah, I've said that so many times. Don't just exist. Live with intent. Be with intent. And so, yeah, you certainly bring. It is deep the way you describe it, but people who like to think like that, and then also the fact that you incorporate it with movement. Many people need that because that causes them, that is how they do think about it. Some people, unless it is incorporated with movement, they don't focus on it. They don't think, or with it being, having a physical aspect to it, that's what makes it click for them. So, and that's why we need different modalities for doing this, is because different things work for different people. So yeah, some people, it would be, they'd be like, what'd she just say? And you do have to listen to it a few times for some, and then other people would be like, whoa, I get that totally. Yeah. So, and, but absolutely, I love listening to your take on it and how you've taken the movement and put with it, because, I'd never heard anybody talk about it like that until you did. And I'm like, I get that. I know what she's saying. It's not something I'm very good at abstract, so I don't have to do that. But when I heard you say it, I'm like, I know people that unless they're doing, they don't get the abstract. And so it made perfect sense to me when you said that this is how I want to show up in the world and do this. And I'm like, I get that. I get where there are a lot of people who need that. And so, so it made perfect sense. So, all right. So how do you want to wrap up, Stacey? Just want to tell people how to reach you. What do you want to do? You just wrap up however you want to.
Yeah,
and
no, I'd love to.
so much for being with me. I love you so much.
I love it too. No, my business is Balanced with a D, balancedbodyreflections.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You can always reach out to Maisha too. If she, somebody wants to reach out and get in touch with me, I'm more than happy to share that. I do have a Women's Hearts and Transition workshop that is coming up this weekend. It's actually 2 sessions. It's 1 workshop, 2 sessions. And the first session is this weekend. So there's still time to clean your seat if you're interested. But yeah, so that's me.
Christy wanted to say, very good topic, Stacey. So she said that. And so I want to thank everyone who was here. I think Christy is the one who commented the most. It said hello to someone who was logged in, but I think Christy's the one who did all the commenting. So,
well, thank you, Christy.
Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in, and for those of you who do watch the replay. And absolutely, Stacey she's easy to find, and we will have her stuff on the Facebook page, and you'll be able to find her for sure. And we'll have her back. Absolutely. She's welcome to come back anytime she wants to and talk about the stuff she has coming up. And of course, post your ads on the page. You know that my pages are open for posting. Y'all are always welcome to do that. So, okay,
Thank you
everyone.
so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I always love talking with you.
Oh, I love talking with you too. And you're welcome anytime. You know that my page is open. My shows are open. You know that. Just when you've got something new coming up, when the book is ready, let me know. When you have a workshop coming up, come and give us a preview of the workshop. Whatever you want to do, let people know what you have out there. That's how they're going to hear about it. Is let's get it out there so people know what they can do. So, all right, everyone. As long as you're breathing, you be you, and you matter right here in the heart. Keep living. Thank y'all for being with us. Bye.